I would hope that anarchism, like any political philosophy, is, and practice, is flexible and open and alive and dynamic enough to shift with historical conditions. So anarchism emerging in the 19th century was emerging in response to specific dominant problematics of the time period. Capitalism was in a different phase of emergence, and probably for most people there was still an understanding of what seemed to be outside of capitalism. 150 or more years later, there is seemingly no outside to capitalism, or capitalism seems so naturalized, it's hard for us to have an understanding of what's outside it. So that's one problem as an anarchist, to face that. But a good side of that, in a sense, is that as things have changed, there's been shifts in where the locus of struggle has taken place. So for most people, when anarchism emerged, it came out of a whole host of socialisms that were addressing the rise of factory conditions, for instance. And there was a real focus on the factory as the site of workplace, on wage labor, on emergence of class stratification. Clearly we can argue now there's probably more intense class stratification, perhaps a lessening of the different types of class. I mean, that's a whole other question of like what is class right now. But it isn't the class dynamics have gone away, but workplaces have changed, workplace conditions, how we even understand class. And more interestingly, I think over time, is as anarchism has developed and come into its own and matured, for lack of a better word, but it's been around long enough where it's been many other types of concerns and people and movements have come into it and challenged it. And to anarchism's credit, anarchism has opened up and remained dynamic, which is one thing I love about anarchism. And when I feel like someday if I ever stop understanding myself as an anarchist, it will be because anarchism becomes stagnant. But anarchism has always been a very open political philosophy, and to some degree that's allowed it to expand. So where people understood it, not universally, but much more predominantly, anarchists of the 19th century understood anarchism as a class-based struggle. We're looking towards sort of proletarian to be the agent of social change, although that wasn't true for all anarchists. But over time, anarchists have understood anarchism to be not just a critique of exploitation in the workplace, or not just a critique of capitalism in the state and the church, which is sort of the three pillars it started out on, but have brought in a whole host of other things, along with other movements that have also brought up these issues related to issues of gender, of sexuality, of colonial struggles, of ecological struggles, a whole host of other things that make us human. And anarchism has really broadened from something that is about simply the state and capitalism to a critique of domination and hierarchy. And if we are concerned about domination and hierarchy, then it opens up pretty much the whole of human life right now to be scrutinized and reforged and reshaped along non-hierarchical lines in all sorts of ways. How we relate to each other in terms of gender relationships, but also gender relationships that are opened up way beyond binary gender relationships. So how we understand who we want to be to express our gender, and how we want to relate to each other in the world, and how socialization works, which would, I think, still be a problem even if we didn't have capitalism. So I don't think that it's wrong to still focus on class issues, but it's also not right just to simply focus on class issues. If anything, history has taught us over time, it's that all these struggles actually are complementary when we're actually looking on many fronts. So some of the best movements within anarchism and without have actually, when they have been struggling and created a little bit of space for more freedom, have said, hey, wait, but there's some other people that still don't feel free, and how do we bring them into that? So to some degree, there's parts of contemporary anarchism that still want to simply focus on class, to the exclusion of other kinds of anarchism. And there's other kinds of anarchists that just want to focus on ecology to exclusion. To my mind, what's beautiful about anarchism is that there's a bunch of things that unite us, sort of sets of values, one of which is that pretty much all anarchists are opposed to top-down forms of social relation and top-down forms of social organization. But within that, I might care specifically about, ecological issues, or class issues, or queer issues, or issues of, ability or access, or whatever the questions are. And what's lovely about anarchism is there's something that binds us together that we're all fighting against, which is unfreedom or domination and hierarchy. But then anarchism, and I actually think this is a beautiful thing about anarchism is its best, is that people then struggle in the realms that they think are the things that are passionate for them, that they care about. And that to me seems stronger than simply having one thing we think is the linchpin, whether that's race or sexism or class. If we just bring down that one thing, I think most anarchists, when you really push them, will say, well, okay, if we're really concerned about hierarchy, just dealing with racism alone won't solve a hierarchy. Just dealing with class won't solve that. And by and large, the generosity of anarchism actually says, no, this complementariness of us acting autonomously but yet in confederation to strike the whole of hierarchy is what we're looking for a freer world.